Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 7 of It's Not You, It's Me podcast. I'm DS Choi, your host, and today I want to talk a little bit about ego, more so in the context of defensiveness in relationships. It's really interesting because when you're in a relationship and you want to connect with someone and they say something that makes it feel like it's your fault, there's a natural feeling that bubbles up. It's like uh, you defend yourself that it wasn't intentional, it wasn't malicious, um, you didn't mean it that way, whatever it may be. And it's very, very interesting, especially in the context of, I don't know if insecurity is what I want to describe it as. Um, I don't want to label these things. I want to stick to the emotional experience, to say the least. Like, for example, um, even when you're in the talking stage with someone, let's say you're just chatting, right? You're texting, and their texts are short, right? Then you get this feeling, right? You get this feeling of, did I do something wrong? Why aren't they texting me back? Are they busy? Um, but there's a lot of uncertainty that feeds this emotional anxiousness of, did I do something wrong? Let's say, for example, too, it's just like, let's say you had a great date or something happened, and then the next day or I don't know, let's say you've been talking for a while, and they say, "I've been feeling distant or disconnected from you," or "I feel that you're cold," or something, right? And again, you feel this sense of, "I'm just being me. Did I do something wrong?" And the answer could be yes, and the answer could be no. It really depends on the situation, what that context was. Uh, However, I want to focus on the concept of me, right? Like, it's not that was the name of this podcast. It's not you, it's me. We focus on what we can do and how do we show up, right? And so when I think about how to respond in these ways, I think we often um, try to make the situation better. And sometimes, sometimes by being anxious and responding in uh, to how to describe it, to pacify, to to feel safe, you respond in a way to get reassurance, and that can be a very, how do you describe it? I don't know if dangerous game is even how I want to describe it. That can be very unsettling for the other person, because the other person who may have been expressing their feelings and situations, they may really just be expressing it, right? They're just kind of trying to share with you what their emotional process is. They may not have meant it to be malicious or anything. And when they see you responding defensively, trying to fix the situation, or give excuses, and I'm not saying they're like bad things. It's just a matter of, again, this experiential dynamic that's going on where one person is trying to describe their emotional state, which may be negative, and that's okay. And the anxious person responds with wanting to connect, um, but expressing it in a undesirable defensive way. And so the person who was expressing it, just the natural emotions that were coming up, uh, feels like, now I have to pacify their anxiety. It's no longer it's as if I cannot express myself without the other person getting worked up emotionally, and that's a very tough situation to deal with. And when I think about people who reach out to me, asking about, like, what do you like? How do I? What is considered being ready for a relationship? And I think everyone, I think where everyone begins on their relationship journey, I think that's fine. I think it's a matter of being aware of who they are now and who they wish to become and how they are growing to be that person they wish to become, especially when it's has to do with character building. And so, let's say, I use, I don't know, we can use temper as an example. Um, if you're short tempered, it's all right to date. That's fine. Um, and you should be working on your temper. I think it's very simple in that regard. Uh, you should express how you have a temper and what you're doing to address that temper, right? And whenever such situations arise, there should be, how do you describe it? A self awareness where you can catch yourself. That you like being angry is fine. It's all about regulation, right? When you notice that you're angry, how do you wish to behave? And sometimes you may fail, you might fall short of what you desire to be. Um, but the next steps of how you repair that, how you go from that situation is important so that it doesn't escalate every single time when you're angry, right? And so, whether you're going to therapy, going to anger management programs, whatever it may be, showing that effort is actually, again, I think when people are working on their flaws, when the people are honest, transparent with their flaws, and are actively demonstrating that they're working on it, I think that is extremely attractive about a person and tells a lot about someone's character, right? And so, defensiveness is one of those things where it's I'm going to use the term red flag, but I don't mean it in the sense of red flag as in don't interact with them anymore. It's a matter of red flags. I would like to describe red flags as these are red flags because I need to ask them about it. I need to talk to them about it. Red flags are things that, oh, like this could be a potential problem. So let's address the elephant in the room, right? Let's address the red flag. I think some people will say, oh, like that's a red flag, like that's toxic or whatever, and just quickly dismiss a person. But we all have flaws. I think everyone has red flags. And those are the things that we want to talk about because if we share, I don't know if share is the right word, um, when we are able to talk about our red flags and how we are navigating them, how we're working on them, it shows actually a green flag, right? The red flag kind of is like what we might predict. We see something and might predict a future behavior, and yes, those predictions may be true, and at the same time, they may not. I think we have to engage with people in their lives to see what they're really like, and when they fall short, it's much more important to see how they react to that situation. If they're defensive, if they shift blame, if they continue to make excuses for their behavior, that's not okay. And so, in that regard, the red flag was good to notice and bring to the forefront. And when you discuss it, you realize, oh, they're not there yet in their maturity to address the red flags in their life. That's a big signal for you to leave. Whether you leave is up to you, but um, that might be your problem to deal with, and that's okay. Everyone chooses their poison. Um, Ideally, I would say you would walk away and let them grow as people, and you find someone who can be a healthy red flag. I don't know how to describe it. Someone who can manage the red flags, right? Someone who's working on their red flags. And I think for everyone, we want to see people grow, right? And I think relationship, unfortunately, is often I don't know if it's because the bar is so low, but when people get into relationships, they're not. A lot of people don't realize how poorly they're behaving or acting. It's actually kind of funny when I think about. There's a lot of dating shows that I watch for references and just popular culture. And I was just watching Singles Inferno. It's a Korean dating show, and there are it. Well, again, I'm sure it's produced, shot, edited in a way to produce characters in a certain way. They may not be like that in real life. I don't know if that's the right describe. They may be highlighting it to an unproportional degree to have an effect. That being said, it's often a good point of discussion when you see such behaviors on reality TV or dating shows and things like that. And there's a character. They were going on a date, and he is he treats the girl like a bro. I think that happens quite often for a lot of men. I take that back. That's not, I don't think that's necessarily fair to say. All I will say is there are times when some men, because they get comfortable with their partner, will treat them like a close friend versus their romantic partner. And I think some people are actually completely fine with that. And I think that's part of their relationship dynamic. And others want to be treated a lot more gently and with more femininity. Well, so I'm talking about a cisgender heterosexual relationship where between a man and woman, and the man can be a lot more gentle with his female partner, right? And show them, I don't know how to describe it, like to boost their femininity, like to accept their femininity and treat them as more feminine esque traits. It's like taking care of them, appreciating their beauty, their kindness, basically being considerate of them. Versus if they were treating like a bro, right? It's more like, oh, like what's up, like yo, what you up to? Let's play sports, let's play games, let's watch TV. Very things that you would do regularly with your friends, and obviously you want your partner to be your friend. And I think again, that's why there are people in which that kind of dynamic is completely fine. And so I think it's very important to describe and discuss what kind of person that you're looking for. I think a lot of people do it by gut feeling and vibes, and it can get a little messy when you don't really have objective standards. I am thinking of developing this tool called Relationship Blueprint. I think it's very simple things, right? For example, things that you should talk about. I mentioned this before about, maybe not in this podcast or not this episode, but the concept of, like, if you want a family, right? Like, you should find someone who also wants kids, right? I think like that's a very simple example, but there's a little multiple degrees of what this looks like. For example, with money, some people love to spend money, right? Like they earn money to spend it, right? And there are other people who are more savers, right? They're spenders and they're savers. And so they're different values, and they come from different lifestyle decisions and maybe lifestyle experiences. I don't know if lifestyle experience is the right word. I was going to say childhood experiences, and that might be more accurate. But those are part of the blueprints that we want to understand. What kind of values do we want to share in a partner? And this is in the realm of picking a partner. I think there are definitely ways to compromise if you're already in a relationship. Again, it's just a matter of discussion. It's understanding, right? It's this is the way I'm like. This is the way you're like. Is there some way we can come together? Is there some ways that we can navigate this difference in values because I care about you and I want to be a part of your life? But we're different, and that's okay. It's again, it's when I think about food, it's just like you can like pineapples. I can like, I don't know. I was gonna say apples. Maybe I should eat apples and oranges, but either way, that's fine, right? Like, I think there are ways in which you can make both things work. It's a little different when perhaps you would say, oh, I'm allergic to pineapples or I'm allergic to apples. And I think that's also manageable, right? I think we can work in ways in which we can accommodate each other's needs and each other's values. It just really comes towards how much the partners are willing to be curious and understand each other and their differences. And where was I even going with this? But right now, in my head, I'm just like, go back to defensiveness. That's what we're talking about, right? And so when we think about defensiveness, I think there's a feeling of disconnect. It's just like, you don't understand me. Let me explain, right? I feel attacked. Let me defend myself because I don't want to be hurt. And I think that's also a very, very natural survival response. I'm not blaming anyone for being defensive. I want to bring awareness to their behaviors that might be ruining their opportunities for connection. I was thinking about something in relation to that. I've had plenty of different roommates in my undergrad, graduate, PhD, whatever life experience. Being on campus, moving around. I've moved around so many times, having different roommates, and I think one of the common issues that arises when you have a roommate is how clean do you keep shared spaces? The kitchen, right? Like the sink, the dishes, very common issues arise. Similarly with the usage of the bathroom, if it's shared, issues arise, right? And I would say this is maybe it's because this is something that's happening with my current roommate, but that might be a story for another time. But the situation I'm trying to describe is when you confront someone about their behavior. For example, let's say the dishes weren't cleaned, and it's been, I don't know, to be nice, I was gonna say several days, right? Like in my head, I'm just like, if it's dirty for more than one day, then I would personally get irked. I definitely lean on the cleaner side for shared spaces. And the reason behind that is I want to be courteous and considerate that if I use the kitchen, I want the next person who uses it to also use it in a clean state. And so I try to keep all my plates, if I leave plates in the sink, I make it extremely easy to clean. I make sure that all the it's water treated and that all the gunk is like not crusting on the plates, right? That's an example. But let's say your roommate is not the same, and the sink is full of dishes that they never clean. Now, if you are conflict averse, then you may not even want to start up a conversation because that's a headache, and you feel like I just want to. If I bring this up, we're gonna fight. It's gonna get annoying, and so I'll ignore it, and hopefully they'll clean it. And if they don't clean it, then it sucks for you because you didn't bring it up. Now, if you're a little bit more comfortable with conflict, then you would go and have a conversation, right? And they may get defensive. They might say like, "Oh, like you keep you don't really pick up your hair in the shower," or whatever it may be, right? They may deflect, and that's also okay. Be like, "Okay, we'll talk about the bathroom issues after. I'll hear your complaints after. I am talking about the sink usage and how your dirty dishes continue to pile up because you're not cleaning them. You want to make sure you stay on the topic," and they can get defensive about that, right? They may question, they may, I don't know, attack your character, whatever it may be, right? And so sometimes that gets really tough because they're not at the immature. I was trying to combine the words. They're not the maturity level to have a conversation in which you just want the sink to be clean because it's a mess and you value cleanliness, right? And for other people who are a lot more chill, they might just clean it themselves, right? They're just like, it doesn't bother me. I'll just clean their dishes for them, right? And that dynamic can work too. I've definitely experienced a dynamic in which, when I was younger, for sure, I used to always get so pissed when people left, didn't clean up after themselves. Very simply, they didn't clean up after themselves, and so the place was always a mess. And I was of the belief that everyone needs to be responsible for their own thing. And then during my PhD days, I was rooming with someone, and I kind of just said, whatever, I'll just do their dishes, and without them asking me to or anything. And that's what I did. And sometimes it would be busy and the dishes would pile up. I would just do the dishes for them. Didn't say a word. And there were times when I was busy and my dishes were piling up more than usual, like because usually I keep my stuff clean, but they did my dishes for me without saying a word. And so I was like, oh, this is new. I did not experience this dynamic before. And it was very nice of them. And so I told them, I think, like, thanks for doing my dishes, right? Just letting them know my appreciation. I know I was busy, and I could also easily say, I like in my head, I can always be like, oh, I do your dishes all the time, like you're just paying me back, kind of thing. But rather than being that kind of person, I want to be someone who's appreciative, right? And so I thank them, right? I don't keep tabs on how often I did it for them. Um, if I'm doing dishes, uh, before I didn't even think about being nice to them, but I know that I felt true appreciation when they did it for me. And so when I do dishes, from then on, when I did dishes for my roommate at that time, I would really show. I would think about them. I'd be like, they must be busy, and they're piling it up, and that changed the experience so much. And I think that is such an important aspect of relationships in terms of how you view someone really impacts how you interact with them. And in a relationship, it's not even a romantic one, even in friendships, right? When some people are very defensive or deflective and they never say sorry or they don't take the blame, I have slowly learned to recognize that it's not about me, right? It's not their issues are their own. Their reactions to issues are their own, and I don't have to get worked up by their defenses. They may be attacking me, but if I understand that they're being defensive, then I don't have to be upset with them. I understand that it's a survival instinct that's coming up. And if I react more aggressive to respond to their defensiveness, they're only going to create a stronger defense. Like they're going to shield up because they don't want to be hurt. And if I understand that dynamic, then I'm able to calm that down more. I don't have to attack them. I could try to disarm their. I don't. Well, disarm maybe sounds like an attack. I can show them, I guess, in a verbal sense. I can put down my weapons and show them that I'm not here to attack you. Right. I'm just trying to make sure we're dealing with a situation that personally I am not happy with. And I would like it to be different. Is that something that we could talk about? Is that something that we could manage? If that's something that we could discuss further? And again, that's the best, honestly, that a person can do, right? Is if you see a situation, and if I were to add fuel to the fire, then that's not going to be helpful. If I can have that awareness of myself, then maybe my interaction with someone who is defensive could be better. And obviously, the answer still can be that the other person may still be defensive and there might be no productive conversation. That's also a very real opportunity. But I know for sure that if I continue attacking them, there for sure the only result will be them getting more angry and upset and defensive, right? And so I would describe a different outcome. If I want a different outcome, I have to do the one that I have to behave in a way that leads to a different outcome. And so that might simply be me choosing to move out, to live in a different place with a new roommate, by myself, whatever it may be, right? Like that is my prerogative. Like is anybody using the word correctly? The ball regarding that is on my court. And so even in relationships, you have to pick what you're willing to tolerate, or what you're willing to deal with. And everyone is responsible for their own behavior. Now, it's obviously, again, it's a little different if let's say you're married and you're stuck with a partner, and that's what they're like. Again, miracles. I don't know. I was going to say miracles, but different outcomes, outcomes you didn't expect, can only occur if you're able to break the expected. I don't know if expected cycle is the way to describe it. If there's because there's often dances that we do. I call them dances, and I call them a dance because there's a routine. We when someone behaves a certain way, when someone takes a step towards us, then we in that dance we respond, and the way we tango, the way we dance together, it might be a terrible dance where we step all over each other's feet, and there might be ways in which habits that we learn to avoid getting stepped on, right? And so that might be a behavior of avoidance, avoiding conflict, not bringing things up, not having conversations. But if we want certain things to be changed, we might need to bring it up, even if it's uncomfortable. Um, there are times in which, yeah, the other person maybe really is oblivious to stepping on your feet. And so they didn't know. They really didn't know until you bring it up. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, because it's not within their awareness. If we think that they're being malicious and purposely stepping on your toes, then you're going to treat them poorly, and they might be like, I didn't do anything wrong, right? They get defensive because they're not aware of what they have done. If they're decent people, then and they're able to see, then they might behave differently, right? And some people are, very frankly, some people are trying to hurt you, and they behave in certain ways. And again, then that is your choice whether you want to stay and engage with them. That is your choice. That is your responsibility. Whether you continue to choose to be with them and engage with them, because you can definitely say no. And you can say, this is not something I'm willing to tolerate, and I will no longer engage with this anymore, right? Or if you really, 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 really care for them, you might be like, I'm going to come back later, right? We'll try again in the future. Again, if we dance to this tune of repeating the same things and seeing the same outcome, nothing will change. And I know that I used to be an extremely, extremely defensive person. When I was younger, I always thought I was right. Man, my middle school days, definitely matured more in high school, but still, I would definitely say super egotistical. Absolutely. I think I changed it so much throughout college and grad school and my PhD days. Absolutely. And even more so, I'm still growing now. It's a continuous journey in life. And I remember thinking that no one understands me. And I remember the one experience that really, really, really got me to change. And I don't even know if change is the right word, but really, really become aware of my defensiveness was someone who really cared about me. Someone from church. She was my small group leader for Bible study and different things. She just sat me down, and we were going out to eat somewhere on campus, and she just was asking me to share about how things are going with church, with school, other relationships, whatever, right? Like friendships, classmates, etc. And I remember used to always getting so irked, annoyed, and frustrated with people around me. Whether it's people at church, leaders, professors, or classmates, whatever it is, right? I'm just like, I'm so tired of these people. Like, I don't know if not being good enough is the right word, but I had very high standards. I came from a high school that was very prestigious, and when I came to my undergrad, I was so culturally shocked at their different level of academic ambition, to say the least. And I used to complain all the time. And my leader, she listened to me. She just asked a lot of questions and tried to understand where I was coming from. And it was the first time where I was upset and angry about my situation, but I didn't feel defensive. And I could hear myself talking. And I was just like, man, I am so angry. Why am I so wound up? Why am I so, why do I have so much energy in this? And I remember that conversation was the first time I was like, man, you're just angry and tired and frustrated. And the truth of the matter was I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be upset at people. I wanted to connect with people. And this frustration was an expression of how I wasn't connecting. And I remember thinking to myself, I sound like an asshole. Like literally, that was the conclusion I came to in that conversation. I'm just like, man, I sound like an asshole. And it's really, really, really interesting because a lot of my friends who hear me complain and being frustrated, they'll always tell me, DS, everything you're saying is correct. Like factually, objectively, there's nothing wrong with what you're saying. And I'm just like, then why am I like? Then why is nothing like? Why does it feel like I'm the only one who sees it? And the people would tell me, my friends would tell me, it's just like, honestly, you're honestly the only one who is frank, like blunt and honest enough to raise those issues. A lot of people, including the people that I'm talking to, they're just like, I don't have the courage to speak up. I don't have it in me to cause waves. I want to keep the peace. And it's also really interesting because there are other people who would say that that's such a great strength of mine. And I never saw it that way. I always thought that I was just causing issues for people. But I created issues because I believe fundamentally there were problems and it was impacting other people in a negative way. And so it's just kind of like, I want reform. I want things to change. I want things to be better. And I was so upset that people weren't fighting for things to be better. And when people would, and there were plenty of people who are just like, you're the problem. And I'm just like, no, I'm trying to be a solution to the problem. And I remember I've had so many verbal discussions and debates with people. And I think that's what grew my defensive nature. But I remember that conversation with my leader. And that was the first time I was just like, I really, really, really felt seen and heard. Literally for one of like the first time ever. And I remember thinking from that experience, I want to be like that. I want to be someone who can really hear, listen, and help people feel seen and heard. That's eventually how I found this relationship coaching journey. This is why I started it. But I remember that experience was so profound. And that's something I've been thinking about for a long time in my life journey, just in general. It's just like, how can I help people who are defensive to not be so defensive? And I realized part of it was coaching. But more than coaching, it was more about just learning how to have conversations, learning how to really be curious, learning how to really listen to people without letting my ego thinking that I know better, thinking that I'm more well-read, I know the research, and really, really just being present with people, really putting them in the forefront, and being able to really, like, I don't take any offense at anything they're saying. I'm just really curious about their thoughts, their opinions, what they're thinking. And I think that has been serving me very well ever since I've been growing more in that direction. And I would hope that that's a skill that could be taught. And I'm slowly learning how to help people see that for themselves. I don't think there's no how to. I think it really is by relationships, by conversations, by curiosity, by really engaging with different opinions and different people, and letting people be able to even, there's that concept, being able to hear themselves for the first time without any walls up. And that's the kind of transformation that I want to see in people things I want to contribute to the world, because I think that would help them build the relationships, the bonds, the connections that a lot of people are seeking. Whew, what a story. I didn't actually think about, I didn't think that the story would evolve, my yapping would evolve into that story, but that's definitely one of the core memories that I have in my life's development. I mean, where do I go from here? It's 35 minutes. How do I want to end this? Maybe I can just stick with that, and maybe we'll wrap up by around 40 minutes. But if you have never, maybe that's a bad way to put it. Because I was gonna ask if you've never experienced that for yourself, if you've never experienced being seen and heard before, then I would, I don't know, I was gonna say encourage you to find someone, and talk with different people who can make you feel that way. And it's really interesting because the people who care for you will often not be that person for you, only because it's really funny. I don't know if funny is the right word. I usually say interesting. Like, oftentimes, your family really cares for you, oftentimes. And because they care for you, they'll often tell you what to do or try to give unsolicited advice. And it's so interesting because unsolicited advice is one of the most alienating ways where you feel so disconnected from, uh, uh, like, like they want to help you, right? And you've never felt so disconnected from them before, based on their offer of unsolicited advice. And so it's so interesting because, uh, basically that's not the way we connect. And I think that we haven't really learned as a social group, how to really connect with people. Uh, and maybe that's another topic for another day in terms of some talk about projection. Now, giving you advice based on what they would do or what they would advise, but it's projection because that's what they would do. Like they don't know what you're going through. They're actually, they would say the phrase like, "I'll put myself in your shoes," um, but they're literally putting themselves in your shoes. The point of that idiom of putting yourself in someone else's shoes is to really take the position of that person. And if they're giving advice, I don't think they're in a position of really being in that position because they don't know what you've done, what you've thought, what you've considered. Um, you're not stupid. You've probably thought about the advice that they gave. And obviously, sometimes some advice is very good, right? Um, I would say oftentimes for me, people's advice fall very flat. And I can understand that they care for me, but I will definitely say they don't know uh, what I'm going through because they haven't asked. They don't know my situation. And I think, well, yeah, there's definitely a part of me that want to help teach people how to do that. And that's also why I'm a relationship coach. But it's more than teaching and more than advice giving. As a relationship coach, I want to help people navigate first what it means to be, how they can be seen and heard themselves. And I think the more they're able to recognize when it occurs and how it occurs, then they themselves will want to be that for the people they love and they care about. And so that's part of my journey and my coaching, my desire to, my contribution to the world, what I want to help people with, my life mission, to say the least, I guess. Very confident. That sounds very confident indeed. But yeah, and I think I think having experienced being extremely defensive myself, and having experienced being seen and heard, and having grown from all these experiences, it has definitely made me a brighter person, a warmer person, someone who a lot of people that have engaged with me have said the phrase, I've never shared this with anyone before, not even my closest friends, but for whatever reason, with you, I feel so, it feels so natural to share with you. You haven't, because I'm always like, this is a very private and personal question, and I always tell people like, oh, if you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I was just really curious, and people have been extremely generous with sharing their lives with me. Something that I've been very privileged with, and so yeah. I mean, if you'd like to share that journey for yourself or have an experience, feel free definitely to reach out to me. This is not an ad per se, but um, I also just am curious about how people live their lives, and because I think I'm pretty weird, and I think I'm not the average person, and so I'm always curious about people different from me, which is most people, and I think I have wonderful conversations, and so with that, I think this is a good time to end this episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much. If you have things and topics that you want me to talk about, share with me in the comments or somewhere. Reach out to me in my email, which is in the description. I'm more than happy to yap about a bajillion things. I have so many stories to tell. I should structure them more. But I'm glad I was able to share the story with the person who really listened to me. And so, with that, yeah, have a good one. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.